Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to remove the oxide from our pieces of 4140 steel because during the heat treatments, they tend to get a layer of oxide that we need to remove before doing further tests like hardness, tensile tests, and metallography. Alright, so let's first walk through the equipment and materials that we need. So I've got some samples over here that we've previously heat treated, and you can see that they have a fairly good layer of oxide. Some of it's scale that might easily come off, others is a little bit more ingrained. So this is what we're trying to get rid of. And I have one here that's already been kind of treated a bit with this oxide removal, and you can see it's much shinier than the other piece. And so we're basically going to try to get the entire bar like this. So as far as what we want to test or what we want to treat, we want to remove the oxide from the sample. We're going to test hardness on the shoulders. So we want to make sure that those are clean anywhere we test hardness. And also in the reduced section of the tensile dog bones, we want to make sure that's clean for the tensile sample. So anywhere that we might test, you want to make sure it's clean. The resonance bars as well, those basically just need to be completely cleaned up. So anywhere you see it. As a rule of thumb, if you just clean the whole thing, you'll never be wrong. So that's the material that we're trying to remove oxide from. And what we're going to do that with is either a handheld drill, as you can see here. I've got a plug-in one. Or we've also got Dremels. This one is cordless. And we've got a wire wheel that we can attach to either one. So this is what I mean by a wire wheel. So you can see it's basically a stainless steel wire that's made into this wheel. It's actually very, you don't want to hit it because it can poke you and make you bleed a little bit. So I'm being careful not to touch it. But this is the wire wheel. So this is going to spin around at a high revolution and remove the oxide from our material. Safety equipment and other things that we're going to need. We're going to use this clamp here to hold the sample. So we're basically going to put it in the clamp and then use the wire wheel when it's clamped in position. If we are using the tools, we want to make sure we have some work gloves to protect our hands from the wire wheel. And we also want to have a face shield to protect, and also glasses to protect our face and our eyes from any sparks that may happen, or from any debris that comes off during the oxide removal. Beyond that, another thing that's useful to have standing by is either be close to the sink, which is behind us here, or you can also get a paper towel and wet it. If you use the wire wheel too long, all that friction will build up and it'll heat up the sample. And so you can basically do it in small bursts. Or if you notice your sample getting hot, you can run it under water or use this wetted paper towel to cool it off so that it doesn't affect the heat treatment. All right, so that's all the equipment and materials that we need for this process. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to pause the video real quick and get reset up, and I'm going to show you the procedure. So we're going to put it in the grip, we'll get the drill set up, and we'll go through that process, and you'll see what the oxide removal looks like, and then I'll show you afterwards, and we'll talk about what we're looking for and what kind of level of oxide removal we're wanting to accomplish in this. All right, so you can see I've got the sample loaded into the vice grip, and so in this case I've got it mounted and gripped so that we can run the wire wheel along the edge and clean up that surface. We can also then turn it around and use the grips at different angles to get the different faces of the tensile dog bone or the resonance sample clean. So now I'm going to just go through and kind of show you. So I've got my gloves on. For the sake of this video, I do not have the face shield, but you definitely want to use that for this. You just won't be able to hear me if I have the face shield. So in this demo, I've got the corded drill. outfitted with the wire wheel, and you'll notice I've got the gloves on so that if I make contact, I'm not going to puncture my skin with the wire. And so all you have to do with these is just hit the trigger and it will spin, and then you basically just want to hold it with some pressure onto the surface as you go across, and then you'll see this start to clean up. And again, don't go, if you notice yourself being in one spot a very long time, think about the heat. So if it gets heated up, make sure that you cool it off, allow it to cool down before you continue. So I'm going to just go ahead and start working on this side so you can see it. I won't talk because you won't be able to hear me over this, and so you'll just kind of see the process as it's happening, and I'll try to show you that face after we're finished here. All right, let's take a look. I'm just touching it to see if it's hot. I don't notice anything, so I don't need to cool it down. So, this is the face that hasn't been removed yet. And then you'll notice that if I go to this side, you'll notice it's a lot shinier. Some of this is, you'll notice you might see some scale still on there. Some of this is very difficult to get off. But it's large pieces, and so don't worry too much about that, but make sure you get all of the kind of corners in here and so forth as you go through this. So some of the larger scale might be kind of difficult to remove, so get as much of it as you can, and then move on to the next. And when it comes to hardness testing, things like that, if you do see something like this and it's left on, you can avoid that by taking hardness measurements around it. So there's some stuff that's very difficult. The scale, it's very difficult to get off, so you might not be able to get that off. So I'm going to go ahead and mount it like this so that we can try to get this surface of the dog bone. So again, I'll put my gloves back on, and we'll just go through this. And I won't be talking while I use the drill, so we'll just kind of see what we get, and then I'll show you it afterwards. All right, again, check it. It still seems pretty cool. So again here, this is the side that we've just applied the wire wheel to. You'll see it's a lot shinier. But again, you still might note there's things like this, a little bit of scale that's going to be really difficult to get off. And so some of that just may never come off unless you really sand it really well, which may be a little bit too much, getting rid of too much material. So some of that, especially on the shoulders, we can live with because the main test sample is going to be here in the reduced section. So focus on that, but then do try to clear enough off on the shoulders so that we can do hardness testing. And so this is basically the procedure. You're going to do this on all sides until you've gotten as much of the scale off as possible, and then you'll move on to your other samples that you have. And again, if it gets too hot, just use a paper towel that's been wetted, or take it over to the sink, but just make sure that you dry it afterwards. All right, so that's it for the oxide removal.